Hello and welcome back to another episode of Stories, sponsored by the Neurodivergent Connection. My guest today was a teenager with plans for the future until a traumatic brain injury nearly took his life. That moment didn't just change his path, it gave him one. Today, he's a licensed clinical social worker who helps men living with trauma, PTSD, and TBIs rebuild lives that still feel worth living. So sit back, relax, and grab your favorite beverage, and let's learn more about him and his story. See you there, everybody.
I wanna believe in the truth, but only see what I'm shown. Got the freedom to choose, but can't decide on my own. Follow what the group is thinking, bottle up my intuition till it's popping up.
Hello, and welcome back to another edition of Stories. Today, I'm joined with Daniel God. How do I pronounce your last name so I don't butcher it, Daniel?
Gaspadark.
Gospodark. So, Daniel, when we say tell me about yourself, we often miss the beginning, and it's often the beginning that shapes us. So let's start there. Where did you grow up?
Yeah, so I grew up in northeastern Wisconsin.
All right. What was your favorite subject when you were going to school?
Oh, favorite subject going to school. I'm gonna have to say gym.
Everyone's favorite, probably. All right. When you think back to that time, what really stood out to you?
To the period that I was in school and going
Yeah,
in for
to the
gym
period that
class.
when you were in school.
Yeah. Yeah, I like the freedom of especially the gym class.
Hmm.
There was directives and there were rules, but you also had some latitude. Also had some freedom to negotiate or move or do things a little bit different or push yourself harder in their activities.
Now, I know going into your senior year of high school, something happened that nearly took your life. I
Yeah.
like to talk about that, only in the way that feels right for you.
Hmm.
So
Yeah,
can you tell me what happened?
sure. So it was July in between junior and senior year. My buddy and I were actually on our way home, and it was like the afternoon. It was not later afternoon, and like the right side of the two tires on the right side of the vehicle went off the road, and then there was a correction, and then we were in the oncoming lane, and then there was another correction, and we ended up rolling four times.
All right.
So yeah, it was three times on the road, and then one time kind of into the ditch field. So um, and from there, I blacked out. I don't remember any of it. I just remember seeing a few colors right before we started rolling because I was looking for a house key that I had dropped,
Mm.
and it was underneath a panel. And then um, I just remember seeing the colors of the wires underneath the panel. And then 3 days later, woke up in the hospital bed in the ICU.
Now, did the relationship of sound or stimulation change after that injury?
In the immediate aftermath, it was greatly enhanced.
Mm.
Being in the ICU room, all the different noises, the heart rate monitors, the breathing tubes, all of that was piercing. And that took probably 6 or 8 months to kind of subside. And then like the ringing in the ears came
Oh,
in,
okay.
the tinnitus. So,
Did the tinnitus ever go away?
mm, I don't want to say it's gone. It's just when there's noise, you don't hear it as much. But when it's quiet, it's not quiet.
Yeah, I feel
Right.
you there. I mean, I never knew I had tinnitus growing up until one day I am lying in bed early in the morning, and what I hear off to the side sounds like a truck in idle, just
Mm,
sitting there, and it's driving me nuts. And I eventually just go to my mother. I'm like, I got to go see an ENT because something's not right. I
mm,
hear what just sounds like a truck outside, and I keep wishing it would go away. And then when I
mm,
look, there's nothing there. So she's like, okay, let's go make an appointment with an ENT. And I go, and he's like, test my hearing. And he's like, you have exceptional hearing, but what you have is tinnitus.
mm. Yeah, very insidious, right?
Yeah. Now, when you were in the hospital, were there words that doctors kept using that just stuck with you in a good way or a bad way?
Well, one of the things one of the doctors, so I was in the ICU for 10 days.
Hmm.
And I'll back up. So I had a brain bleed on my left temporal lobe, had to have a craniotomy to stop the brain bleed, stroke in my left frontal lobe, and then fractured skull, collapsed lung. And so being in a coma for 3 days, and then they would take me out during the day, and then they would put me back in a couple nights. And so I wasn't too lucid during those days.
Hmm.
But I do remember a doctor saying I probably wouldn't graduate with the class that I started high school with. And that for me was kind of like, wow, pretty severe. And also like you're not gonna tell me what to do, right? So like challenge accepted. So um that was a big one. Um and then also too there was, we don't know as the medicine and like his hopefully his mobility and everything excuse me comes back, but we don't know like what is his verbal language going to look like because that was part of the brain that I injured. What is his comprehension going to be? um will he still be the same person, especially with head injuries? Sometimes personality shift, um not usually for the better. So there was lots of variables in my head that I was like, but now when I reflect on it, like those are those big times, big things that I remember.
Now, what was the hardest part of recovery that people didn't see?
Ask that one more time.
What was the hardest part of recovery that people didn't see?
Mm. I think the level of vulnerability that you need to have. Going from a 17-year-old pretty physically fit, right, to not being able to feed yourself, right, or to take a shower independently, right, and needing a nurse to help with that, or you know being able to before the accident go to the gym 4 or 5 days a week, and now you can barely lift like an exercise ball, right? So those pieces, I mean, you can fight them, right? You can not accept it and just kind of willfully sit there, and or you can embrace what they're trying to do, how they're trying to support you, and just kind of run with it.
Now, what's the biggest thing you lost and the biggest thing you gained from all of this?
Mm. So I would say the biggest thing I lost was like the social aspect of junior year, summer
Mhm.
into senior year, and then like the first year of high school or college, like some of that socialization piece. Because that first year and a half, 2 years was so heavy with just TBI fatigue. I mean, when I got home from the hospital in August or late July. I mean, I could sleep 16 hours straight, no problem. And then when school started, I would just go half days and then take a nap for an hour or two and still be able to pass out at like 7 or 8 and then sleep till 6 or 7, like nothing. So the level of fatigue was so intense that I definitely missed out. So the biggest thing I gained was when I was in inpatient rehab, I knew I would be landing somewhere inside these professions, right? Didn't know where,
Hmm.
but maybe physical therapist, occupational, speech, and then I became a licensed clinical social worker.
So you kind of wanted to give back to the people that helped you.
Yeah, I mean, give back, but also be some of those people that, shine the light for people in dark moments or supported people when they're at their worst, right? Um, because you never know what those ripple effects are going to be.
Yeah. I mean, people never realize that when you go to a specialist or you go to a physical therapist, you don't realize what impact they're going to have on your life in the long run.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, especially something like what happened with you. I mean, these people made a huge impact, I'm sure on your life because look at you now.
Mm-hmm.
And I applaud
Yeah.
you for wanting to give back and help those who are hitting that dark spot and need that help.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, they leave a lasting imprint, right? I
Yeah.
mean, I would say it's similar. It's definitely not the same, but when you have somebody in hospice, right? Like
Mhm.
almost like the person's team meshes and becomes like family with yours family,
Mhm.
right? But I mean, I did so after getting out of inpatient rehab, I did physical therapy 2, 3 times a week for 3 months, and then I did speech therapy 2, 3 times a week for 17 months. So to you get to know people well, right? Like too well. The janitorial staff start to recognize your face at the hospital, and it's pretty severe.
Yeah. Now, besides your family, who else showed up during that time for you?
Mm. I had lots of friends come. Actually, the person I got into the accident with,
Hmm.
still close with him. Um, I would say a more extended family. I mean, it's still family, but outside of like my immediate mom, dad, siblings, but aunts, uncles, grandparents at the time. But I would say like those were the big pieces that showed up.
I mean, people don't realize that not just happy moments bring family together. It's kind of sad that a lot of times it's the tragic moments that pull family
Hmm.
inwards. And it's always that cliche of when you see family all gathering together, it's like that cliche of we have to, it's that thing of we have to stop meeting at the sad times. We got to start meeting at the happy times.
Right, right. Yeah. And life gets so busy too that
Mhm.
sometimes those pieces become neglected and then you come back and it's like, oh, it's only these rough times that we do come together.
No, it sounds like that experience really pointed you towards the helping profession. Why that
Mhm.
path?
So again, I didn't know where I was gonna land, but my sister's also a social worker. So she was
Uh,
like, hey, check this out. And I started looking into it. I was thinking special ed for a little while too, and then had a conversation with my sister, and she pointed me to the social work profession. I started researching. I was like, this is pretty cool. So started doing my bachelor's program and then graduated. And I worked in the field for like a year and a half, working with children who have developmental disabilities, both in the community as well as one-on-one in special education rooms.
Hmm.
But and I was like, this is meaningful work and it was great, but it wasn't exactly like the one-on-one work that I wanted to do. So then I got my master's, um, and then to work in hospital settings, inpatient psychiatric hospitals, the higher levels of care, you need to have your licensed clinical social worker license. So, um, yeah, and ended up with that. So, been hanging out here for wow, that long already since like early 2020s, 2021. So,
Good for you. Now, what word best captures why you chose to work with men who experience trauma?
mm, what word best captures why I choose to work with men who've experienced trauma? That could be a podcast in and of itself. Potential.
All right. Now,
Yeah.
what turned you on emotionally or spiritually about helping men heal?
Yeah, so I mean, one, I went through something pretty traumatic, right?
Hmm.
Um, even counseling for it. And there is the piece around like men need support too, and still on a cultural level, it is shifting, but a lot of men don't get the needed support that they need, but also deserve in terms of grief and loss or repeated first responder trauma, combat trauma, or even just feeling like the pressure of the world is so intense that all they do is just grind, 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 but they also then are disconnected from their loved ones.
Hmm.
So those pieces then wrapped in with that word potential, right? It's what is the potential? I mean, it's extraordinary.
Now, finish this sentence. I am at my best when.
I get a good night's sleep.
Straight to
I
the
can
point.
I can run pretty okay for a few days with some poor sleep, but then I mean, like most people, we need our sleep, right? But I think with my brain injury, there's definitely like you do need your sleep.
Yeah. Now, now let's learn a little bit more about your practice. Why don't you tell me about your private practice?
Yeah. So I started Revitalize Mental Health in March of 2021, and right in the midst of COVID. And it was more of kind of like, this broad practice. Like I'd work with many different things, but there was always like these select people that stood out. And I was like, okay, like kind of following the needle back, the thread back. And a lot of them were men, and a
Hmm.
lot of them were healing. A lot of them were growing, right? Developing emotionally mature, on a maturity level and breaking self-sabotaging patterns. And that was fun. So, I mean, it's probably been a year or so that I've been really ingrained and niched down into supporting men that have experienced just overwhelming events, right? I mean, it could be even like infidelity and what that brings into somebody's life, right? The challenges with the relationship and the challenges with future relationships.
So, why men? Why trauma, PTSD, and TBI?
Mm. Yeah, so the I feel like there's the underserved part, especially because of the cultural aspect, the kind of pull yourself up by the bootstraps mentality, which we need grit, right? We need
Mhm.
perseverance. Both men and women do. The world is rough. And we also need to become interdependent when things are so rough that maybe our body, our nervous system, ourselves are just overwhelmed that we can't function or we're paralyzed, right? And that's what we see with high levels of trauma, even traumatic brain injury, right? Like there are shifts in functioning patterns because the brain is injured. However, there's also a lot of nervous system dysregulation, a lot of just internal restlessness that may be just pent up lingering effects of trauma.
Mhm. All right. What do most people misunderstand about men and trauma?
Mm, good question. I think that every man will display traumatic symptoms differently. So some will be internally focused and kind of berating themselves, right? Some will be outwardly focused, anger, rage. Some will engage in self-sabotaging or self-destructive behaviors if things are going great, and even if things aren't going great. So really, it can be kind of like a how do I want to say this? What's a good analogy for this? But it's kind of like working backwards through a maze. You already know you can see the line, but you have to go through each turn to really figure out what is driving what. Where did this come into the picture? And why was that the response, right?
Mm,
And why has that self-sabotaging response been ingrained for years, right? And then the emotional pieces, the imagery, the urges, the sensations that come along with that.
mm. Now, what sound helps calm your nervous system?
Oh, what sound helps calm your nervous system? So
Mm,
that will be somewhat unique to every person, right? Some people enjoy spending long periods of time in nature, so maybe the wind, right? The leaves rustling, maybe it's the waves on a beach, or even sometimes too, like I've heard other people, when they hear like the trains going by the on the tracks in the distance, when they're blowing their horns, right?
mm,
Like that reminds them of childhood nostalgia, right? So sometimes it's that can be soothing. So really finding what works best for you, and maybe it's a specific type of music. Um, yeah. So I I mean, the world is your oyster, right?
Now, what about you? What
Mm.
sound calms your nervous system?
Yeah, being in the woods.
Mm,
That's where I grew up as a kid.
all right.
So, or
Uh,
being outdoors, like in the country.
mm,
So, being able to hear the grass and the weeds moving, the trees moving, that, yeah,
I
and
totally,
waves.
yeah, I totally get you there. I went to school in England
Ah,
and for my master's um and I was in in the countryside. I was in Kent and it was
hmm
quiet. It was like walking through serene woods
hmm
and tree lined walkways and just the quietness,
hmm
the sounds of the students walking by and the breezes, the smell that you can smell the ocean air. I didn't feel razzled. I didn't feel
hmm
like I was anxious. I was very calm.
Yeah,
And then you bring me back to the city, and it's just like my nervous system is always on edge.
yeah, right.
Hmm.
Right, and it's interesting because I'm wondering, even when you're thinking about being in Kent, right? And like seeing some of that imagery, can you connect with that calm?
I would love to because I mean it's just hard at times because when
Yeah.
you're when your nervous system is so on the limit and you want to get back down to what a calm is, it's just a long fight.
Hmm. Right. And we also can't live our lives at red line
No,
in the nervous system, right?
right. Now, is there a color or an environment that helps you feel regulated?
Yeah, I would say it's similar to the noises, right? The woods. Even, I mean, I grew up in northern Wisconsin too, at my grandparents' cottage. So I spent a lot of time on the water. So being able to smell the water, hear the
Hmm.
waves, I mean, sunsets over the lake, stuff like that can really, really soothe the nervous system as well.
All right. Now, what turns you off emotionally or energetically these days?
What turns me off?
Yeah,
And what was the last part?
energetically these days.
Yeah, I think it's when I have way too much on my plate and I can't find those down times to rejuvenate, right? Or coupled with having some of those days with also not sleeping well.
All right.
Yeah,
Now,
perfect storms.
yeah. Now, if you could be remembered for one thing, what would
Uh,
it be?
yeah, I would say probably oh, that's good. That's a good question. I need to think about that.
Mhm.
I think for trying to spread healing as much as I can.
Yeah. Now, what would you tell your 18-year-old self, knowing what you know now?
Yeah, this is just a speed bump. Yeah, because I turned 18 like 3 weeks after I got out of the hospital.
Hmm.
So, but at that moment, it feels like it's all encompassing.
Now, dealing with what you're dealing with,
Hmm.
what are some of the most, what is the day-to-day life like for you? I mean,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, wake up, breakfast, go to work, maybe see some clients for private practice on the side in the evening, and then finish that up, and then going home and actually trying to maybe have a few minutes to relax or even read, and then repeat. So I remember when I was little, I would get upset at my parents because they were so routine,
Mm.
so focused on routine, and now that's how my life runs.
Now, do you have any clients that really stick out? Any stories that really stuck out to you that have thanked you in the long run after you've helped them?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if like in the long run, meaning like years later they came back, but even some that I've had around, and I have to be careful, right, of not revealing too much like personal information or
Hmm.
anything, but just for some things that healing some things that they carried for decades,
Mm.
right? Be it neglect or sexual abuse. And they obviously still have the memories. Those are still there. We can't erase them. But when we can heal the emotional and physiological charge around those memories or even certain smells, certain scenarios or situations, and that charge is dissipated, there's a whole breadth of latitude that people can connect with.
No, you must really feel really gratified that you're helping those who've hit a dark patch in their life, whether it's trauma or TBI.
Hmm.
And how do you not carry their darkness home with you? What is your grounding spot when you get home? What do you do to let it all go?
Yeah, and I think that that comes back to habits, routines, and rituals, so to speak. Um, so spending time working out, spending time outdoors, right?
Hmm.
Um, eating healthy, like all the things that we're kind of taught,
Hmm.
they actually work. It's just that they're boring, right? But they work.
Yeah.
Sleep, get good night's sleep, rest, right? Not overdoing it on caffeine, but just staying present.
Hmm.
And that takes a lot of work, right? Because our world vies for our attention. Stressors come up rapidly, almost daily, sometimes in the news. Like it's just wild. So, finding ways to stay in your body despite those, right?
Hmm.
Keeping the feet on the floor, noticing your breath, bringing those pieces in, and then also too finding ways to take a walk in the woods or take a walk outside, right?
Now, I want to circle back for a minute.
Yeah,
If this accident didn't happen,
yeah.
would you be where you are today?
I
Would you
don't
be
think I
doing the
would
same
be.
thing?
I don't think I would be. My plan before the accident was either join the military or go to school for business.
Mm,
So, I mean, it was a pivotal moment, right?
hmm.
And I think when we as humans can use those moments to our benefit, our
Hmm.
life can become exponentially better. And those around us, right? Or those lives that we touch. It's yeah, I mean, it takes a lot of grit to get through those difficult moments, but then it's almost like those become instead of headwinds, now they're tailwinds for you.
Now, let's go back for a minute.
Hmm.
When you had the accident and you woke up in the hospital,
Hmm.
how were you able to calm yourself so you wouldn't be in such a panic state? Did you understand what was going on? Were there doctors or and everybody there explaining to you what happened and what was going on and what's going on for your head with your injuries?
Yeah, great question. So I was pretty out of it because of the medications I was on.
Mm,
Um, so were there doctors and nurses and stuff around watching? Yes, but they weren't really interacting with me because they wanted to keep the stimuli so low.
mm,
So they were more observing, right? Like what are my nonverbals? Because one of the I can't remember when I did it, but one of like the first days I was out of a coma, I crossed my legs while I was laying down.
mm,
And my mom was like, "Oh, like that's something he did at home."
mm-hmm,
Right? So then the doctor's like, "Okay, so there's a connection to the past, right? Like that's not severed." Um, but it is interesting because the subconscious is very powerful.
mm-hmm,
And as I was coming out of the coma on the first day, I actually asked about the driver.
your friend.
Yes, but I don't consciously remember doing that. But I asked about it. So, so was I aware something had happened? Yes, but I'm not sure where that part is because that's
Mm,
more subconscious, right?
mm-hmm,
I remember one of my first conscious memories was I had never like really traveled internationally before.
mm-hmm.
And again, like you're talking severe TBI, it doesn't make logical sense. But I was like, I thought I woke up in France and I went through the time change. of the time zones, but I wasn't in France. I would have much rather have been in France.
Uh,
But
you would have known you were in France. Everyone would have been speaking French.
yes, right, right. So, and that again, that doesn't really, that doesn't track for what happened, right? But nor does asking about the driver and me not remembering it. But
Hmm.
it just goes to show how complex the brain is and its functioning, its protective mechanisms, being able to black out, right? Because your nervous system's like, okay, this is too much, you're done, right? It's very adaptive.
I remember a long time ago, there was a story on TV about a guy who was doing hot air ballooning, and his balloon had crashed on the mount. He was in the mountains, and he remembers um passing out, and he was saying how he was talking about how the brain works. It starts shutting down non-vital things, and your
Hmm.
hearing is like the last thing to go because he remembers the balloon's alarm going off,
Mm.
telling him that he's gonna crash, and the radio going off, alerting other people. And I just remember that because that kind of goes to the whole thing of why we hear our alarms when we wake up, because our hearing is like probably the first thing to turn on in the morning when
Hmm.
we wake up.
Yeah, it's wild too, right? Because then sometimes in the middle of the night there's a noise that you just wake up to,
Yeah.
right? And so and that's yeah, I mean it's very intriguing conversations to have about
Um,
how the body even just kind of recharges, rejuvenates, what systems are still online. Are they online 20% or 40% of their capacity? I have no idea.
I mean, one of the most interesting things I've heard about the brain is that when you're in a coma, and it's longer than what you had for 2 days, but if you're in a coma for a long time, your mind creates a whole other life for you. Almost. A lot
Hmm.
of people have had that, or
Hmm.
people have woken up speaking foreign languages.
Yeah, I didn't have that experience. I feel a little robbed, you know, or like being able to like play the piano or
Yeah,
something.
becoming a savant.
Right, right. But that didn't happen. I was hoping, but
Did you just sit down in front of a piano like, okay, let's see if I know how to play the piano without even knowing how to
uh
play it?
no, I didn't. Um there was a piano in the like the big kind of like the hospital main doors, not the emergency room, but like the main doors for the hospital. And it was actually remote control or not remote control, but it was already pre-programmed, so it just
Mhm.
played by itself. But
Like a player piano.
yeah, yeah. So no, I never sat down. I did pick up a guitar a few years afterwards, and I still can't play. So maybe I just missed the opportunity.
Now, here's a question for you.
Sure.
When you were in that 2-day coma, were you able to hear everything that was going on?
No,
No. So you were
it was black.
completely out.
Yeah, it was done. I
When did
was,
go on?
yeah. No, no, I don't, from the moment that accident happened with seeing those wires,
Hmm.
I don't remember anything until coming to and thinking I was in France. So,
That's weird that you were thinking you were in France.
what's that?
That's weird that you thought you were in France.
Yeah, the brain is strange, right?
Yeah, it's very strange.
And better than thinking I was somewhere else. I don't know.
Now, how
It
did your friend fare from this whole accident?
Yeah, so he had some more minor injuries, significant concussion, um, in kind of like a messed up shoulder. He had I was the passenger. he was a driver, so they think he had a little bit more stability with the steering wheel
Mm,
than I did. But definitely, he had his struggles that I don't want to speak for him. He shared them with me, of, calling EMS and doing what he could. And, very grateful for how he and his family intervened on a level to make sure I got to the right hospital, because we were kind of in a rural area and they were going to take me to a more smaller hospital. And then by the time that they kind of did the assessments, and then they would have sent me to a larger hospital. Um, but his mom said, no, just take me right there. And that probably was something that saved my life. So,
now, let's get out of some of the serious talk for a minute. If
yeah.
heaven would, if heaven were to exist, what would you
Mm.
want to hear when you arrive?
Oh, yeah. I don't even know if it's so much hearing. I think I would just like to see faces or family members or friends.
Who would you want to see again?
Oh, my grandparents, my dad. Yeah,
Now,
yeah.
are there any books you would recommend to my listeners?
Oh, yeah. The embodiment of emotions. It's a more clinical social work book, but or clinical therapist book, excuse me. But I think the book can really shed some light on how, oh, I think in America, when something happens and we have these emotions, we tend to suppress them, try to white knuckle them. And
Hmm.
that actually is contraindicated for helping heal those experiences. So the book, The Embodiment of Emotions, talks about how healing, even just allowing for some internal expansion can be.
Hmm.
Allowing those sensations, although maybe a little uncomfortable, to spread, to maybe slow it down as it spreads, right? Because, trauma is like 0 to 150, whatever, thousand, right? And it happens so fast, and our body stores all that upswing. So a lot of trauma work is decoupling or undoing some of those pieces of, oh, like honking me, like a honking noise, right, from a traumatic accident with vehicles involved doesn't always mean that there's an issue or an emergency, right? So undoing some of those pieces are the smells.
I mean, that's one of the things I've learned is people don't realize that when you go through trauma, if you don't do anything about it, you're living with that for the rest of your life unless you do
Yeah.
something to dissociate the whole memories and the smells and the sounds.
Yeah.
Otherwise, every person's going to wind up with PTSD, and any little sound or noise or smell is going to trigger them or set them off.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah. And how infectious living with that it can become,
Mm-hmm.
right? Your relationships suffer, your quality of life suffers, your self-worth, your relationships with your children, your job productivity, right? Even if there was high levels of childhood trauma, um, 0 to 18, right? Like you're seeing shorter lifespans.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just, you need to heal from these things. Even, you know, if suppression's working, sooner or later it won't, or you'll have to do more to suppress.
Now, for the male listeners out there who are listening right now, who are
Mhm.
dealing with trauma and don't know where to turn, what would you tell them?
I would say try to find some sort of therapist that utilizes eye movement desensitization and reprocessing therapy or um, somatic experiencing
Mhm.
therapy. And those are two modalities I'm trained in, so I'm biased with them, but I've seen the level of healing that I've seen with those two modalities pales in comparison to the more cognitive approaches or just talk therapies. So really a therapist that incorporates the body in the healing process, the nervous system, right? The brain stem, the limbic system. And then we get to the more cerebral cort or the cortical structures, right? So
You're like the third person I've heard mention that about somatic. I've
mm,
talked with a few people who practice somatic healing and
yeah.
stuff. It's something I am not even familiar with and never even knew it existed until recently.
Hmm. Yeah, it's pretty cool. I am enjoying it more than eye movement desensitization and reprocessing therapy, but I still do some EMDR therapy for some of my clients, but mostly everyone's somatic.
Hmm.
It's just we miss so much by not tracking with the body and what's happening here.
Hmm. And finally, where can people find out more about you and your work?
Yeah, so I mean, following the link on this podcast for my website, revitalizementalhealth.com. Feeling free to give me a call, 720-295-6703. Um, and I used to be more active on social media and stuff like that, but I'm not now. So email. Yeah.
And I just want to say thank you for trusting me and sharing this part of your story.
Yeah. Thank you for creating a space for this, right? The stories are important.
Yes, they are. I mean, people don't realize that when you're in the right space, it feels right.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. And stories have a lot of healing components to them
Hmm.
themselves, right? There's community in stories.
And that's it, ladies and gentlemen, and I'll see you in the next one. Thank you, Daniel.
Thank you, Reed.
No problems.